Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Jack Whitmore stood at the threshold of his two-story home in Virginia, keys in one hand, duffel bag in the other. After 12 months deployed overseas, he expected chaos. Toys on the floor, the echo of his 6-year-old son yelling, "Daddy's home." A kitchen light left on, maybe the scent of her lavender candles. But there was silence. Thick, echoing, unnatural silence. He pushed the door open. The living room was stripped bare. The photos on the mantel were gone. The leather couch was missing its throw blankets. Noah's shoes were not by the door. Jack's boots hit hardwood as he stepped inside, heart pounding in a rhythm he usually reserved for battlefield ambushes. "Lindsay," he called out. No answer. He checked the kitchen, then the bedrooms. His closet had a row of hangers swaying gently in the draft from the open window. Half of Noah's bed sheets were missing, the pillow tossed carelessly on the floor. On the counter, beside the sink, was an envelope with his name on it. Inside were 2 lines typed in cold Helvetica. "We need space. Do not try to find us." Jack stared at the paper for a full minute before sitting down on the floor, his back against the fridge. He did not cry. Soldiers like Jack had a different reaction to grief. His breathing slowed. His eyes scanned. His mind locked in. He opened his phone. No messages. He checked her calendar, wiped clean. He tapped into a backup app he once used for logistics and deployment and searched her location history. Florence, Italy. 4 days ago, she had taken his son across an international border, without a single word. Why would she? That was when he saw the name buried deep in Noah's pediatric file, Dr. Ryan Green. The man who always smiled too wide at family appointments. The one who once called Jack too intense for parenthood. Jack stood up, shoulders squared, the crumpled letter still in hand. What kind of mother steals a child like a thief in the night? And why did she run so far, so fast? He did not know it yet, but this was not just betrayal. It was war. Wait, I need to tell you something important. Have you ever realized that you keep watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet? This video has reached this point, which means you're enjoying it. So why not subscribe? I have a big goal, 10,000 subscribers, and you can help me reach it. Think about it. If you don't subscribe now, you might miss my next big video. This is the moment. Hit that subscribe button now. Do it now. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out. I know you'll do it. And when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I have a special surprise for you. Now let's continue story. He sat in a diner 20 miles from base, a plate of untouched scrambled eggs in front of him and a black coffee growing cold. That was when the second blow landed. A new email. From Lindsay. Subject, "Please respect our decision." Jack clicked it with a hand that shook for the first time since a convoy explosion in Kandahar. "Jack, this is what is best for Noah. I do not expect you to understand. I need you to let us go. Italy is better for him, more stable. Do not make this harder than it has to be. Lindsay." He reread it 3 times. Best for Noah? She had taken their son from his school, his friends, his father, and dumped him in a foreign country without any legal right. He picked up his phone and called JAG Corps. "Sergeant Whitmore," the voice on the other end said. "You are reporting an international abduction?" "Yes. My wife just took my son overseas without my consent." Silence. "Then, we will initiate Hague Protocol. But once we activate this, there is no off switch." "Good," Jack said coldly. "Turn the damn key." That same night, Jack activated every resource his military intelligence clearance gave him. He located her flight manifest, booked on a diplomatic pass through a nonprofit linked to Family Wellness. The organization had no physical office, no board of directors. She had help. He called their bank. All joint accounts? Emptied. She had left him $38 and a single recurring charge for Noah's online reading app. This was not spontaneous. This was strategic, planned, executed. Jack stared out the motel window as rain blurred the neon sign outside. "She thinks I will break," he whispered. "She has no idea who she is messing with." Jack was not just a father. He was a soldier trained to dismantle systems, supply chains, communication webs, human intel networks. And now, he was treating Lindsay like a hostile operation. At 0300, he pulled out a whiteboard in the motel room. He mapped out the timeline. Last phone call with Lindsay, April 9th. Noah's last school day, April 11th. Departure flight, April 13th. Her email, April 17th. His arrival home, April 18th. She had covered her tracks for 9 days. 9. He checked her social media. Scrubbed. Her friends? Silent. Jack reached out to her sister, Maggie. No reply. Next, he accessed military international travel surveillance logs. Lindsay and Noah were in Florence, staying at a villa under the name of Dr. Ryan Green. The doctor had donated to a Child Health Abroad nonprofit the month before. It all clicked. Dr. Green, the affair, the fake foundation, the fast-tracked passport. It was not just betrayal. It was coordinated fraud. He called his attorney. She committed custodial interference. That is a felony, the lawyer confirmed. Then why is she walking around Tuscany drinking wine while I sit here alone? Because she had a head start. Jack slammed the receiver down. He stared at his son's favorite action figure, still lying in his duffel bag from their last visit. Then he did what he had not done in years. He cried, not because of pain, because he knew what had to come next. He was going to burn their world to the ground, one quiet, calculated move at a time. Jack had seen the man before. Ryan Green. Trim beard, expensive shoes, plastic-perfect smile. The guy who always stood just a bit too close to Lindsay during Noah's checkups. Jack had thought it was arrogance, maybe just that overconfident doctor energy. But now it felt surgical, calculated. He pulled up old appointment records. There it was. Ryan had been Noah's primary care physician for nearly 3 years. He had done house calls when Noah was sick with strep throat. He had sent flowers to Lindsay during her gallbladder surgery. Jack stared at the email header. Ryan.green@childhealthinl.org, the same domain as the fake foundation on Lindsay's flight pass. She was sleeping with their son's doctor and used that connection to escape the country. He slammed his laptop shut and stood up. His fingers curled into fists. Rage clawed at his chest like shrapnel, but he fought it down. He could not afford to lose control. Not now. Instead, he called an old intel contact at Naval Air Station Sigonella, stationed near Florence. "I need eyes on a civilian target. Family-related. Name: Ryan Green. American. Traveling with a woman and child. Likely registered under a nonprofit. Send it quiet." "I will keep it silent," the voice replied. "What are you planning, Whitmore?" Jack's voice turned to ice. "I am planning to expose every single lie." He looked back at the empty motel room. On the wall was a photo of a smiling couple from another era. Happy. Whole. He whispered, almost bitterly. "I thought I had forever with her." But forever was a lie. And now it was time to start tearing it all down. It took 48 hours, but the intel came back. Lindsay had left the country on a diplomatic group waiver, under a false claim of domestic trauma. She filed paperwork stating Jack was militarily unstable and a flight risk for emotional abuse. He blinked at the words. Read them again. Then again. They had never argued in front of Noah. Not once. They barely fought. She had used his career, his service, as ammunition, and the system had bought it. The waiver had been approved by a civil clearance officer who had formerly worked with Ryan Green's foundation. Everything was connected. The nonprofit? Fake. Its tax filings were padded with looped donation chains. It had no physical office. Lindsay and Ryan had built an entire shell corporation around medical outreach for children as a smokescreen. Jack stared at the document. His hands were trembling now. They built this while I was dodging sniper rounds in Helmand. He opened his laptop and began a spreadsheet. Every flight Lindsay ever took in the past year. Every account movement. every suspicious contact. He charted it like a mission. Jack was not just following her trail. He was preparing to destroy it. Then came the final hit, an intercepted WhatsApp message. Ryan, Italy feels like home already. Noah's adjusting. She is better now that she is free. She is better now that she is free. Jack's jaw clenched. He shut the laptop. I am going to ruin you, he said aloud to no one. And he meant it. It was past midnight when Jack found himself in a Walmart parking lot, sitting behind the wheel of a borrowed Jeep, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. He had not slept in 2 days. His phone buzzed. A text from his attorney. It is confirmed. Lindsay violated federal custodial law. We are filing emergency motion under Hague Treaty. He took a breath. A long, deliberate inhale. Then he threw the Jeep into drive and started moving. Not toward base. Not toward home. Toward the only place that still felt real, his father's old cabin out in West Virginia. 2 hours later, Jack stood in the woods. Moonlight cracked through the branches like fractured glass. He held Noah's baby blanket in one hand, clenched to his chest. He had found it in the back of a closet she had missed. He fell to his knees in the dirt. And then he screamed. A full-throated, world-shaking scream into the night. No more holding back. The system had failed him. His wife had betrayed him. His son had been taken. But Jack Whitmore was not broken. He was reorganizing. And in that moment, in the mud, in the dark, with rage bleeding from his lungs, he made a promise. He would use every law, every tactic, every quiet corridor of his intelligence training to bring her world down. Not with fists, but with strategy, with exposure, with legal fire that would leave nothing but ash. You should not have made me your enemy, Lindsay, he whispered. You should have left my son out of it. At exactly 0600 hours, Jack walked into the regional military legal office like he was stepping onto a battlefield. The lieutenant behind the desk stood when she saw his face. Sergeant Whitmore, we were told you would be activating Hague custody action. Jack placed a folder on the desk. It thudded like a brick. Everything is in there. Proof of abduction, her falsified documents, my deployment records, Noah's birth certificate. I want the protocol activated today. The lieutenant flipped through the file, her brows furrowing. She filed an affidavit claiming emotional endangerment. Used your PTSD diagnosis from 7 years ago. I passed 3 security clearances after that. I have never harmed anyone in my family. I believe you. But this will be ugly. I am not here for easy, Jack said. They began the process. Legal letters. Diplomatic notifications. Jack's phone pinged every hour with new filings, State Department, Italian judicial correspondence, court timestamps. He was dragging this into the light, piece by piece. By 1600 hours, it was official. Operation Custody Protocol was active. Noah was now legally declared a victim of international parental abduction under U.S. and Italian jurisdiction. Jack walked out into the cold wind, standing in his uniform at the edge of the legal building steps. He pulled out his phone and stared at a photo of Noah on a carousel, laughing with his eyes shut. I am coming, son, Jack said quietly. And this time, I am bringing the law with me. 2 days later, Jack was staring at a black screen in a dark apartment. His old friend Malik, a private digital contractor, sat beside him typing furiously. You said she used a wellness retreat to get the diplomatic clearance? Jack nodded. A nonprofit called Rooted Mothers, or some garbage. Ryan Green's name is tied to it. Malik stopped typing. Man, this is not just a front. This is a pipeline. On the screen were wireframes of fake donation pages, looped bank routing numbers, AI-generated testimonials. No rail board. No registered office. The entire group was a shell, used to shuttle privileged women out of the U.S. under fraudulent mental health and safety claims. Jack leaned forward. So how many use this network? More than 40, Malik said. And the connections go high. Lawyers, clerks, even one small-time federal clearance officer. Jack felt it in his gut. This was not just about Lindsay. She was a node in something far bigger. And now that he had stepped into it, he was not walking away. "What do you want to do with this?" Malik asked. Jack stared at the screen. His voice was calm, focused. "I want names. I want routing numbers. I want the exact moment where Lindsay became part of this. We are not just getting Noah back. We are dismantling their damn empire." 4 days later, Jack sat across from his new civilian attorney, Melanie Braddock. She had a background in federal whistleblower cases and looked like someone who had eaten politicians for breakfast. "They filed forged custody papers in Norfolk County," she said, flipping a set of documents across the table. "Signed by Judge Harold Givens. He has had multiple complaints buried over the years. And he is dirty. Real estate kickbacks. Campaign funds from Green's medical firm. He has been laundering their custody approvals through selective trauma waivers." Jack's jaw clenched. So he was never impartial. No, he was paid. Lindsay never had a chance of losing custody, not with him on the bench. Jack stood, pacing. "She turned the courts against me while I was overseas, and they helped her do it." Melanie leaned forward, her voice steely. "This is not just about getting your son back anymore. This is about exposing a system that let it happen." Jack nodded slowly. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Malik. Subject line, "First domino down." Attached was a screenshot. The clerk who expedited Lindsay's fake passport application had just been suspended. Jack smiled for the first time in weeks. The chain was breaking, and once the truth started moving, there would be no stopping it. Rain splattered the windows of a quiet DC cafe as Jack slid a flash drive across the table toward a woman in a gray trench coat. Kara Holt, an investigative journalist with a record of exposing corrupt nonprofit channels and judicial misconduct, glanced at it without touching. "Is this what you said on the phone?" she asked, eyes sharp, voice low. Jack nodded. "Everything is in there. Bank records, falsified medical waivers, even video of the custody hearing where the judge faked concern for Lindsay's mental health. I want you to run it." Kara leaned back in her chair. "You are dropping a bomb on multiple government-backed entities. There will be fallout." "Good," Jack said. "Fallout is the point." She studied him for a moment. "Why now?" Jack looked out the rain-streaked window. "Because my son deserves to grow up knowing the truth. Because my silence is the only thing keeping her reputation alive. And because every woman she helped escape might be hiding something darker." Kara nodded, slowly picking up the drive and slipping it into her coat pocket. "I will verify everything. If this holds up, it is going front page, nationwide." Jack finished his coffee in silence. Before he left, Kara stopped him. "One more thing, why me?" He paused at the door. "Because I have read your stories. You do not flinch. Neither do I." As he stepped into the storm, Jack knew it was only a matter of time. The world had just been handed the match, and he was watching the fuse burn. Inside a sprawling event hall in Florence, music pulsed under crystal chandeliers. A banner read, "Global Health, Bridging Nations Through Care." Jack sat alone in the back, dressed in a civilian blazer, sipping tonic water, eyes tracking every move. On stage, Ryan Green grinned as he spoke into the mic, flanked by Italian diplomats and U.S. Embassy reps. "We are proud to support family health worldwide through our nonprofit partners." Lies. All of it. Jack watched closely as Lindsay appeared beside Ryan, wearing a navy blue dress, makeup flawless, smiling like she had never ripped a family apart. They had built a new world for themselves, and they were being rewarded for it. A man slipped into the seat next to Jack. "You are the American?" Jack did not look at him. "Depends on who is asking." "Your contact. I have something you will want to see." The man slid over a packet. Inside were photos. Lindsay meeting with an embassy contact 2 weeks earlier. Ryan exchanging documents with a known Shell Corporation manager in Rome. Jack's eyes narrowed. This is proof they are using medical aid grants to fund private offshore accounts. This is not just lying. It is international fraud, the man whispered. "Are you willing to testify?" The man hesitated. "I have family. But if the story breaks first, I will confirm. Jack nodded, standing slowly. He looked back toward the stage one last time. Lindsay and Ryan were laughing, hand in hand, basking in applause. They had no idea the floor was already crumbling beneath them. Jack whispered to himself, "Smile while you can." Back in Virginia, Jack walked into O'Malley's tavern and found Adam Myers sitting at the bar. Adam, his best friend since ROTC, godfather to Noah, and until recently, one of the only people Jack trusted. Jack sat beside him without a word. Adam stiffened, sipping his beer. "I was wondering when you would show." Jack turned to him, calm but cold. "How long did you know about them?" Adam stared ahead. "Jack, how long, Adam?" A long pause. 6 months. Jack's heart twisted. "And you said nothing?" Adam looked down. "It was not my place. She said it was over. That it was just once." "Once." Jack laughed bitterly. "They are living together in Italy, Adam. She took my son. They built a lie with legal protection. And you stood there and watched. I did not know about Italy. I swear." Jack leaned in. "I needed you. And you picked silence." Adam's voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting Noah. I thought if I pushed, she would just shut me out too." Jack stood up slowly. "You made a choice. And now you are just another part of the wreckage." Adam grabbed his arm. "Let me make it right." Jack pulled away. "You cannot. You helped her rewrite the truth. And now I am the one piecing it back together." He left the bar without another word. Outside, he exhaled sharply into the cold night. The betrayal just kept multiplying. But every lie brought him one step closer to exposing the whole system. And Jack Whitmore was not done digging. Not even close. Florence. Sunset. Gold light painted the cobblestone alleyways as Jack stood outside the private medical wellness clinic. He had no appointment. He did not need one. Inside Dr. Ryan Green walked down the marble hallway, clipboard in hand, laughing with a nurse. He stopped cold when he saw Jack standing by the front desk. For a split second, something flinched in Ryan's eyes, recognition, maybe fear. But it vanished quickly, replaced by that same smug, polished grin. "Well, if it is not the hero himself," Ryan said smoothly, adjusting his cufflinks. "Long way from home, Sergeant." Jack did not smile. "Let us cut the theater. You know why I am here." Ryan leaned against the desk, unbothered. "Italy's beautiful this time of year. Great food, better wine. You should enjoy yourself before flying back to wherever the military hides its damaged goods." Jack stepped closer. "You stole my family." Ryan shrugged. "No. She left. You just were not there to notice it happening." Jack's fists clenched. His jaw tightened. "She was lonely, Jack. You were married to the uniform. Someone had to step in." Jack's voice dropped. Quiet. Controlled. Dangerous. "I am going to burn everything you built. Not with bullets. With evidence. Paper trails. Depositions. Your career, your credentials, your reputation. I am going to reduce it all to smoke." Ryan laughed softly. "You think Italy cares about American military tantrums?" Jack handed him a sealed envelope. "Notice of Hague Convention violation. You are a named co-conspirator in a custodial kidnapping. Civil charges incoming. Criminal ones, pending." Ryan's smirk wavered. Jack walked out without waiting for a response. He had made his presence known. And Ryan Green finally knew. This war was not over. It was just beginning. Jack sat on a rooftop overlooking the villa where Lindsay and Ryan were staying. Below, through an open patio door, he could see Noah playing with blocks on the living room floor. His heart ached. Every part of him wanted to run down there and pull his son into his arms. But he could not. Not yet. Instead, he pulled out a compact drone controller and launched a small, silent quadcopter into the air. It hovered just outside the villa's second-floor window. Inside, Lindsay was on the phone. "Jack is unstable," she said. "He is following us. You said we would be protected." Ryan's voice, muffled but clear enough, replied, "He is just bluffing. He has no legal standing here. Let him spiral. He will eventually snap, and then we use it." Jack's fingers tightened on the joystick. They were not just hiding. They were waiting for him to break, so they could paint him as the violent one. He lowered the drone and snapped stills from the live footage. Lindsay, Noah, Ryan, the conversation. Proof. He sent them immediately to Kara Holt and Melanie Braddock. Subject line, narrative control. Then he whispered, just above a breath, "You are not going to win this with lies." He stayed there for hours, watching his son from a distance, observing every small smile, every laugh, every flicker of innocence. He was a ghost to his own child now, but not for long. Jack stood and packed the gear away. Noah would know the truth, and so would the world. Back in Washington, Jack sat across from Melanie Braddock in her downtown office as she reviewed a file thick enough to crack a desk. This is Lindsay's legal counsel, Heather Madsen. She filed the custody bypass documents in under 48 hours. That should have taken months. Jack leaned forward. She bypassed protocol. How? Melanie flipped to a flagged page. She cited abuse, then rushed the case to Judge Givens, our old friend. No corroborating witness. No evidence. Just Lindsay's word, a sealed affidavit, and a note from Ryan Green's clinic. Jack's knuckles pressed into the armrests. They fabricated an entire trauma claim, and the court rubber-stamped it. Yes, Melanie said, eyes sharp. And I found something else. Madsen is listed as a silent partner in Rooted Mothers. Jack froze. She is part of the nonprofit? She helped build the whole system. She handles the legal angles for dozens of runaway custody cases. Jack stood and paced the room. This is bigger than just a stolen child. This is organized criminal fraud using the language of trauma and mental health. And they are hiding behind it like a shield, Melanie added. If we expose Madsen, the rest will follow. Jack turned, eyes focused. Then we bring the whole structure down, one floor at a time. Melanie nodded. You will need patience. Jack's voice was stone. I have patience. What I need now is fire. Jack cleared off the wooden table in his late father's cabin. He rolled out a massive sheet of tactical paper, the same kind he had once used for field ops in Syria. But this war was not overseas. It was personal. At the top of the chart, he wrote in bold black marker, Lindsay, Green, Madsen, Givens. Then beneath it, Rooted Mothers. Medical fraud. Custody violations. This was no longer a family dispute. This was racketeering. This was a criminal operation dressed in yoga pants and wellness retreats. He placed photos across the board. Lindsay at the villa, Ryan at his gala, Judge Givens shaking hands with Green at a private dinner, Heather Madsen's property deed linking her to Rooted Mothers HQ. Next, he opened his laptop and patched into a secured call with Kara Holt. You want a story? He said. I am building a case that will bring down a legal and medical laundering ring built on fake trauma claims. Kara replied. And you have hard evidence? I have whistleblowers, documents, surveillance footage, cross-border financial ties, and more coming. This will explode, Jack. I wanted to. He ended the call and brought up a map of Italy, linking it to US-based nodes. Then, he added a new name, Senator Raymond Kellis. He had just discovered the senator's wife had filed a trauma waiver through Rooted Mothers, 22 days before donating $200,000 to their mental health initiative. This was not just fraud. It was political protection. Jack stared at the web he had created. It looked like a battlefield, and he was about to march straight through it. The villa was quiet that night, the city glowing in the distance like candlelight beneath a dark velvet sky. Jack moved silently across the outer garden, crouched in shadows. He was not breaking in. He was observing, recording, documenting. Through the kitchen window, he saw Lindsay pacing on the phone. Her voice was tense. No, I have not heard from Givens. I think Jack is here. I feel it. He left something. Her hand trembled as she picked up a small package sitting on the table. Inside was a drawing Noah had made years ago, stick figures of Jack, Lindsay, and Noah holding hands. Across the bottom, in a child's handwriting, my family is together forever. Lindsay dropped the paper like it had burned her. Ryan walked in moments later, noticing her shaken state. "What is it now?" he muttered, pouring a drink. "He was here," Lindsay said. "He left this." Ryan scoffed. "He is bluffing. He cannot get past Italian custody law." "You do not know him," she snapped. "He is not just angry. He is calculating. We need to leave Florence." Jack, hidden in the hedges, held the camera steady. Her fear was useful. It meant she knew her time was running out. He had sent the drawing not out of nostalgia. He had sent it to remind her what she broke. As he slipped back into the alley, Jack tapped a message to Melanie. "She is cracking. Be ready for the next move." Back in D.C., Melanie met with someone Jack had been tracking quietly for weeks. Laura Jennings, a former paralegal in Heather Madsen's office. Laura sat nervously in a cafe booth, fingers tapping against her teacup. "I am not sure I should be here," she said. "You are not under investigation," Melanie assured her. "But what you know could change everything." Laura hesitated. "I filed the trauma affidavit for Lindsay Whitmore. I never saw any actual medical evidence." "Did she seem distressed?" "Afraid. She seemed rehearsed," Laura admitted. "Heather told me. This one matters. No mistakes." They had already secured the passport forms before the affidavit was even signed. Melanie's eyes narrowed. "That is procedural fraud." "There is more," Laura whispered. "I found a binder once. Codes, names, flagged judges. There was a list of cases they had cleared through a fast-track pipeline. Lindsay's case was at the top." Melanie leaned forward. "Would you testify?" Laura shook her head. "I will not go public. But I will confirm the documents if you get them." As she left, she slid a flash drive across the table. "If anyone asks, you never saw me." Back at her office, Melanie plugged in the drive. It was all there. Emails, internal routing slips, false affidavit templates, even a memo titled, "Emergency Trauma Custody, Italy Fast Channel." She picked up the phone and called Jack. "You were right. We have our first crack in the wall." Jack's voice was calm. "Then push until it all comes down." It was just past 3 a.m. when Malik sent the message. "Got it. Ryan's offshore accounts. Sending now." Jack sat in the glow of his laptop, eyes scanning through encrypted spreadsheets. There it was, a web of hidden transactions stretching from Italy to Luxembourg to the Cayman Islands. Ryan Green had funneled over $1.6 million through offshore shell companies. Names matched previous rooted mothers, donors, but Jack could now prove they were fake. One transaction was tagged RM Grant, F20, and led to a private investment account under Lindsay's name. She was not just a passenger in the fraud. She was a partner. Jack forwarded the files to Melanie and Kara with a message. "We can prove money laundering. Get ready." An hour later, Melanie called. "These funds. They do not just prove fraud, they prove motive. Custodial fraud tied to financial gain. That flips the narrative completely." Jack leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on the screen. "Then let us flip it." He spent the rest of the morning packaging every asset into a dossier. Emails, transfer logs, passport approvals, offshore payments. The plan was no longer about revenge. It was prosecution. He hit send, then sat back in silence. He was not just fighting to bring Noah home anymore. He was building the case that would bury them. Jack stepped into the marble atrium of the Florence courthouse. The echo of his boots on tile rang like a war drum. Beside him, his Italian legal liaison, Sofia Minetti, whispered, "Judge Rosario. He is stern, but fair. He follows Hague rulings closely." Good. They entered the chamber. Lindsay was already seated on the opposite bench. She wore a charcoal blazer, lips tight, hair styled like nothing was wrong. But the way she clutched her handbag said otherwise. Ryan was not present. Coward. The judge entered and sat. The hearing began. Jack's lawyer laid out the argument. Lindsay had illegally removed a child across international borders, under fraudulent medical claims, and without joint custody consent. She had used fake trauma waivers and manipulated court processes with help from known corrupt officials. Lindsay's lawyer countered with claims of emotional instability and safety concerns. Judge Rosario raised an eyebrow. Is there medical documentation? No, Your Honor, the attorney admitted. But the mother acted in. Speculative fear is not legal justification for international parental removal, the judge cut in. Jack remained composed. Then came the pivotal moment. Sophia submitted the financial dossier. The judge flipped through it in silence. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. You will both appear again in 2 weeks. But I am warning you now. This is no longer just a custody matter. It may become criminal. Lindsay looked like the blood had drained from her face. Jack stood, nodded respectfully, and walked out without looking at her. Outside, Sophia whispered, "That landed hard." Jack replied, "She wanted to control the story." He looked up at the sky. Now the story is controlling her. 2 weeks later, Jack returned to the courthouse for the emergency session. He was early. Lindsay was late. The judge was not amused. When she finally arrived, she appeared disheveled, eyes tired, movements restless. Gone was the confident facade. The hearing began, but this time Judge Rosario was no longer patient. You defied court orders. You presented no new evidence. You failed to notify the father within the proper window, and now you are refusing to comply with emergency visitation rights. Lindsay's voice trembled. Your Honor, Jack is a trained soldier. He is manipulative. He is watching us. Jack stood slowly. I am watching my son be used as a human shield. Gasps echoed. Rosario banged the gavel. Enough. Ms. Whitmore, as of this moment, you are in violation of the Hague Convention. If you do not allow supervised visitation within 72 hours, I will issue a court-ordered transfer of custody under international law. Lindsay's lawyer tried to object. The judge silenced him. The evidence speaks louder than you. After court, Lindsay confronted Jack outside the steps. You are enjoying this, she hissed. Jack met her eyes. Calm. Unmoving. No, I am enduring it. For him. Her mask cracked then, just for a second. The first real crack since the day she vanished. And Jack knew. Her world was finally collapsing. Jack sat in a quiet back room of a Florence hotel. Dim light, open laptop, and files spread across the table like a sniper's gear before a mission. This was not just strategy anymore. It was the execution phase. He uploaded the footage. Lindsay's confession about fearing Jack without cause, the video of Ryan mocking the idiot soldier, and the financial trails showing fraudulent donations funneled through rooted mothers. All of it wrapped in a time-stamped, verifiable dossier. He titled it simply, The Faces Behind the Lie. Then he hit send, directly to Kara Holt, 3 global news outlets, and an anonymous Reddit account primed to post at exactly 8 a.m. Next, he activated a dormant military contact, an officer working in the Internal Medical Fraud Division. Dr. Ryan Green, Jack said, is committing fraud using fake foundations under the guise of pediatric care. The voice on the other end went quiet, then replied, We are listening. By morning, the wildfire had started. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, medical forums. Lindsay and Ryan's names began trending for all the wrong reasons. Ryan's clinic locked its doors. Lindsay disabled her Instagram. The media dubbed it the Florence custody conspiracy. But Jack was not watching headlines. He was outside a small cafe, watching Noah through the window, sitting beside a teacher during supervised visitation. His son was smiling. Jack wiped his eyes quietly, not from sadness, but from purpose. One system had failed him, but now he was tearing down the one that protected them. And he was just getting started. That evening, Kara called Jack from an unknown number. Her voice was low, urgent. You need to hear this. We found something buried in Rooted Mother's digital files. Something big. Jack stepped outside, into the night air. Tell me. It was not Ryan who designed the nonprofit structure. It was Lindsay. Jack froze. What are you talking about? I mean exactly that. She was not just part of it. She was the architect. 3 years ago, she incorporated the Rooted Mother's framework under a different name, then transferred control to a dummy board. Ryan joined later. Jack's breath caught. So she created the exit pipeline? Yes. And the trauma waiver templates? Hers. She wrote them. Every time she cried in court, that was performance based on scripts she invented. Jack leaned against the stone wall. The weight of it hit harder than he expected. He had been fighting her as a manipulated pawn. Now he realized she had been the queen all along. How many families? He asked. Too many, Kara said. He hung up without another word. Inside, he stared at a photo of Lindsay from their wedding day. Sun in her eyes, soft smile, hand in his. He whispered to no one, "You did all this. And you still looked me in the eye every day like I mattered." It was not just betrayal anymore. It was premeditated warfare. And Jack was now facing the real enemy. Not a coward doctor, not a corrupt judge, but the woman he once trusted with his future. Lindsay's hands trembled as she stuffed documents into a black duffel bag. Her phone buzzed again. News alerts, media requests, death threats, even her mother calling to say, "What the hell did you do?" She looked at Ryan, pacing beside the fireplace. "We need to go? Tonight," she said. "I have passports, cash, new identities, the old 1-2 escape plan." Ryan's face was pale, sweat beading his forehead. "You said this was foolproof," he snapped. "You said he would break down, not blow the entire system open." Lindsay stopped packing and grabbed his collar. "You think I did all this just to cry in court and let him take control? No. I built Rooted Mothers because women like me needed power, escape, leverage. We gave mothers options. You gave them lies," Ryan said. She slapped him. The room went quiet. Lindsay's eyes filled with something colder than fear, entitlement. "I gave them freedom. Jack is the one playing the victim." But she knew, deep down, it was over. She had underestimated Jack Whitmore. She thought his discipline was just muscle, that his kindness was weakness. But he had turned out to be everything she feared. And now the walls were closing in. As sirens echoed faintly in the distance, Lindsay zipped the bag and looked toward the door. "Pack. Now. We leave tonight." But what she did not know, Jack had already blocked every route out. He was not just taking her down in court anymore. He was closing the net. And she had no way out. At 2:17 a.m., Jack received a single-line message from Malik. "You need to hear this one yourself." 10 minutes later, Jack was on a secure call, headphones on, sitting in complete darkness. Malik played the clip, audio stripped from a corrupted Rooted Mothers server backup. Ryan's voice, unmistakable. "Cocky. She's a genius. She made the trauma scripts so believable, I almost forgot they were fake." Lindsay, laughing faintly. "Men love to doubt emotional women. It is our greatest advantage. That is why I write it like theater, so even judges feel like they are rescuing us." Jack's hand gripped the arm of his chair. The clip continued. Plans, strategies, how they helped women get overseas, dodge legal custody, and smear ex-husbands as abusive with zero evidence. One segment froze Jack cold. "Ryan, what if one of them fights back?" "Lindsay, then we smear him harder. We drag his name, get friends to testify, even plant fake messages. By the time he proves anything, he's already lost everything." Malik's voice came through. "I can clean this up, verify location and metadata. Do you want to go public?" "No," Jack said. "Not yet." He stared at the wall, mind spinning. "This is the bullet," he whispered. "But I am saving it for the execution." He sent the file to Melanie and Kara with one line. "When we drop this, it ends." And for the first time since Lindsay left, Jack smiled. Not because of vengeance, because the truth finally had a voice. A week later, Jack sat in the front row of a crowded Florence press hall. Reporters filled every seat. Lights were harsh, cameras live, and murmurs buzzed like a storm waiting to break. At 9 a.m. sharp, Kara Holt walked on stage. She adjusted the mic, glanced at Jack, then opened her folder. "Today, We release a documented investigative report on a cross-border custodial fraud network involving falsified trauma claims, forged legal documents, and international financial laundering under the guise of maternal protection. She clicked to the first slide, the Whitmore case. Lindsay's photo flashed onto the screen, smiling, poised, respected. Then a second photo, the internal trauma scripts. Her original notes. Her financial accounts tied to rooted mothers. Gasps filled the room. Slide after slide peeled back the deception. Ryan's medical fraud. Judge Given's campaign donations. Heather Matson's legal shortcuts. Lindsay's original trauma templates. All annotated, with her own voice recorded on the planning calls. Then came the final audio. The one from Malik. Dead silence filled the room as Lindsay and Ryan were heard, in their own words, describing how they exploited the legal system. By the time it ended, no one was blinking. Kara looked up. Everything you just saw is being turned over to U.S. and Italian authorities. Full documentation will be released to the public. Reporters erupted with questions. But Jack was already leaving. He did not need to hear the noise. The grenade had been thrown. And now, he was walking away from the explosion. Jack sat quietly on the porch of a weathered farmhouse outside Richmond, Virginia. Across from him sat Evelyn Whitmore, Lindsay's mother. She had called him in tears after the press conference. "Please come. I did not know it was all like this." He was skeptical, but curious. "I saw the news," she said, pouring tea with trembling hands. "The voices. The accounts. I knew Lindsay had changed, but I thought it was grief. The stress of motherhood. I never imagined this." Jack watched her carefully. "You vouched for her in court. Wrote a letter of character. She begged me," Evelyn said softly. "Said you were becoming dangerous. That Noah was scared of you. She showed me screenshots." Jack's voice was tight. "Fake screenshots." Evelyn's eyes welled. "I believe that now." There was silence between them. Heavy, painful. "She used all of us," Jack said. "You, the court, the media." She turned motherhood into a business strategy. Evelyn nodded slowly. "I want to testify." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I want to tell them what she told me. How she said you would never be able to prove anything. How she mocked the system behind closed doors. I need to make it right." Jack nodded once, slowly. "You cannot undo what happened," he said. "But you can help make sure she never does it to anyone else." Evelyn looked down at her tea. "I raised her," she whispered. "And now I do not recognize her." Jack stood to leave. "Neither do I," he said quietly. "But the world is starting to." The conference had barely ended when the first wave hit. Emails flooded media inboxes with a single link. A private YouTube upload titled, "The Architect's Confession Unedited." Jack had uploaded the full audio Malik recovered. No cuts, no narration, just Lindsay and Ryan, casually laughing while outlining their trauma manipulation strategy. The file went viral in under 10 minutes. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Whitmore Truth, hashtag Custody Conspiracy, hashtag Rooted Mothers Scam. Influencers weighed in. Legal analysts dissected the implications. Parents around the world reacted with horror. By the end of the day, Rooted Mother's website was shut down. Anonymous whistleblowers came forward from inside the nonprofit. Former clients began to question their involvement. Jack watched it unfold from a quiet balcony in Florence. He did not speak. He did not gloat. He just sent a message to Kara Holt. Release Phase 2. That night, her team dropped the documents. Shell companies, medical license violations, fake affidavits, campaign fraud. Each one traceable. The internet lost its mind. Ryan's clinic received death threats. Lindsay's professional endorsements were revoked within hours. By morning, both of their passports were flagged. And the world now knew. They were not just cheaters. They were criminals. 3 days later, Jack stood outside a neutral supervision center in Rome. His court-mandated visitation window had finally arrived. He stood inside a bright playroom, heart pounding as the door opened and Noah walked in, small, quiet, confused. Jack kneeled slowly. Hey, buddy. Noah stared, blinked, then whispered, "You came." Jack smiled through the lump in his throat. "Of course I came. I never stopped looking." Noah walked forward cautiously. "Mom said you got lost, that you were mad." Jack's voice cracked. "I was never lost, and I was never mad at you." They sat on the floor, surrounded by puzzles and plush toys. Noah whispered, "Are you staying this time?" Jack reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo, one of them at the zoo years ago. Noah riding on his shoulders. "I never left you, Noah. I just had to find a way to bring you back." Noah leaned into his side and hugged him tightly. Jack wrapped his arms around his son and closed his eyes. No courtroom, no headlines, no strategy, just that moment. And it was everything. The courtroom in Florence was packed. Jack sat flanked by Melanie and Sophia. Across the aisle, Lindsay looked hollow. Ryan looked like a ghost. This was the final hearing. Judge Rosario's tone was firm. Due to the volume and credibility of new evidence, including financial records, false affidavits, and audio confessions, this case has now been elevated to criminal review. Lindsay's attorney tried to object, citing media bias. The judge cut him off cold. "The facts are not media inventions. They are your client's own words." Ryan's lawyer begged for a separation of charges. "No," Rosario said. "Mr. Green enabled the fraud. His name is on the accounts. He will be tried alongside Ms. Whitmore." Jack remained silent, staring forward, hands folded. Then came the moment he had fought months for. Rosario cleared his throat. "As of this ruling, full legal and physical custody of Noah Whitmore is granted to his father, Sergeant Jack Whitmore. The mother is stripped of all parental rights pending further criminal proceedings." Lindsay flinched. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Jack stood slowly. For once, he looked her dead in the eyes. No anger, no pity, just finality. The judge continued, "Ms. Whitmore and Mr. Green are hereby ordered to surrender their passports and report to custody for formal arraignment by end of day." Jack walked out of the courtroom with Noah's drawing tucked into his coat pocket. One word echoed in his mind: done. The next week was chaos. Headlines ran nonstop. Pediatric fraud ring exposed, custody conspiracy, how a soldier fought back, mother turned mastermind. Now faces years in prison, Kara Holt's story went global. Her podcast dissecting the scandal topped charts in 5 countries. Ryan was stripped of his medical license. His assets were frozen. His career was over. Heather Matson was indicted on 5 counts of legal misconduct and conspiracy. The Rooted Mothers Foundation filed bankruptcy after a class action lawsuit by its own clients. Senator Raymond Kellis quietly stepped down after his wife's donation trail was traced to multiple fast-tracked exits. And Lindsay? She was placed under house arrest pending formal extradition to the U.S. Reporters camped outside her temporary residence as she stared through the window, face pale, the media feeding on her former prestige. Every lie she had told, every system she had manipulated, every name she had dragged through the mud, now sat on public display like a gallery of her own design. Jack watched it unfold from home, Noah asleep beside him on the couch. He did not need to speak. The world was doing it for him now. Ryan Green stood in front of a hotel ballroom mirror, fixing his tie one last time. The Global Children's Health Alliance had not yet canceled their annual gala, and he was confident his European connections would help him dodge extradition. He walked the red carpet with a forced smile, cameras flashing, journalists hesitant but present. Lindsay was notably absent. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Donors whispered. The air buzzed with a strange unease. Then, just as Ryan stepped up to the podium to accept a last-minute award for international pediatric advancement, the back doors opened. 2 plainclothes officers entered. The room fell into absolute silence. "Dr. Ryan Green," one of them said, "under order of the Italian judiciary, you are hereby placed under arrest for financial fraud, conspiracy to defraud the family court system, and custodial interference." Flashes erupted. Gasps filled the room. Ryan froze, eyes darting, sweat forming instantly. "This is a mistake," he said, hands raised. "My legal team, save it for court," the officer replied, snapping the cuffs shut. They walked him out in front of press, donors, cameras, and Jack, standing quietly in the back, hands in his coat pockets, watching the final unraveling. As the car doors slammed and Ryan's last thread of power vanished, Jack whispered, just loud enough to hear himself, "You said I would lose everything. But it turns out, you never had anything real to begin with." The courtroom played the final piece of evidence 2 days later. A high-quality recording retrieved from a decrypted phone backup by Malik. In it, Lindsay and Ryan sat on a beach in Amalfi, wine glasses in hand. Ryan, "Do you think he knows?" Lindsay, "Jack? He probably suspects. But he is too proud to admit he lost." Ryan, "He lost the moment he left for deployment." Lindsay, "Exactly. You know what the military gives you? Routine. Obedience. It makes men predictable. He never saw this coming." Ryan, "And he never will." They toasted their glasses. The court was silent. The judge replayed that segment twice. Once for the record, once for the truth to settle in. Lindsay stared straight ahead. No expression, no tears left. Jack did not speak. He did not have to. The footage did what words could not. It revealed the true rut beneath her smile, the intent behind her betrayal, and the certainty she had in his failure. But she had miscalculated. Jack had never been predictable. He had been patient. And now, her arrogance was part of public record, forever. Judge Harold Givens sat in his private chambers, hands clasped, face pale. The DOJ investigation had reached him. He had just signed a resignation letter and turned in his judicial badge. When the knock came, he expected an officer. Instead, it was Jack. "Sergeant Whitmore," the judge said stiffly. "I am not supposed to talk to anyone involved." Jack placed a single lily on the desk. "I am not here to argue." The judge stared at the flower, confused. Jack leaned forward. "My father used to say lilies are for funerals. Not just of people, but of reputations." "You came here to gloat?" Givens asked. "No. I came here to remind you," Jack said quietly, "that you helped a woman steal a child, destroy a career, and weaponize a system meant to protect the innocent." Givens swallowed hard. "I hope your silence at night is louder than mine was during war." Jack left without another word. No yelling, no threats, just a lily, and the kind of shame that never fades. 1 week later, Jack sat on his porch with Noah, watching the sunset. The case was over. Lindsay and Ryan faced formal indictments. Custody was settled permanently. The press had moved on to newer scandals. But peace? Peace was something Jack was still learning to feel. "Dad," Noah asked, staring at the fading light, "are they mad at you?" Jack glanced down. "Some people might be, but most? They are finally seeing the truth." "Are you mad at Mom?" Jack paused. "No, I am sad for her. But I am not mad. That is too easy. What she did was wrong. But we survived it. That is what matters." Noah leaned into his side. "Will you ever go away again?" Jack smiled and kissed his head. "Never. You and me, kid. We are done running." Inside, a framed copy of the custody ruling sat on the mantel. Next to it, a simple photo of Jack and Noah, arms around each other, smiling. No more headlines. No more surveillance. No more courtrooms. Just truth. Just father and son. Just life, finally real again. Jack never liked the spotlight, but it found him anyway. His story, once buried in courtrooms and encrypted hard drives, had become national conversation. He watched from the quiet of his living room as a news anchor on primetime spoke directly into the camera. In a country where family courts are often stacked against deployed parents, one man, Sergeant Jack Whitmore, used patience, intelligence, and legal pressure to expose a multi-tier custody scam involving corrupt officials, doctors, and lawyers. Clips rolled across the screen. Ryan being arrested, Lindsay leaving court in handcuffs, documents flashing with Jack's name tied to the investigation. He did not fight with fists. He fought with facts. And the ripple effects have begun nationwide. Noah was asleep in the next room, his favorite dinosaur clutched under one arm. Jack turned the TV off. The phone vibrated. It was Kara Holt. CNN wants a live interview. New York Times too. You have become the face of something bigger. Jack shook his head. I did not do this to be a symbol. Too late, she replied. You are one. He walked out onto the porch, looked up at the night sky, and exhaled slowly. He did not want fame. He wanted change. And if speaking out helped protect one more parent like him, then maybe the spotlight was worth it. Inside a federal courtroom in Virginia, Jack stood tall, dressed in full uniform. It had been months since the Florence trial. Now, it was time to formalize Noah's U.S. custody and close the loop once and for all. The judge, an older woman with a calm voice and sharp eyes, flipped through the final case file. Mr. Whitmore, she said, based on extensive evidence, foreign court rulings, and federal custody evaluations, this court recognizes you as the sole legal guardian of Noah Whitmore. Jack nodded, emotion contained beneath every breath. The judge continued, your conduct throughout this process has been exemplary. You are the definition of responsible parenthood under pressure. This court commends you. Lindsay was not present. Her legal team had not even shown up. She had waived her rights in writing 2 weeks earlier, as part of her plea bargain. It was over. The judge handed down the stamped order. Jack folded it carefully, slid it into his briefcase, and shook the judge's hand. Thank you, he said quietly. In the hallway, Noah ran up and wrapped his arms around Jack's waist. Did we win? The boy asked. Jack knelt down, eye level. We did not just win, buddy. We took our life back. Ryan sat in an interrogation room in a Virginia detention center, cold metal table under his shaking hands. He had tried to broker a deal, tried to flip, but no one wanted what he was offering anymore. The feds had everything they needed. That morning, the official order went through. All of Ryan Green's assets were frozen. His cars, bank accounts, properties in Naples and New York, medical licensing revenue, gone. Across town, Heather Matson's office was raided. Lindsay's accounts were drained to cover restitution. Her luxury Florence apartment was seized. Every dollar from rooted mothers, every donation, every off-book transaction had been tracked and tagged. Jack stood with Melanie outside the Treasury building, watching agents file boxes into black vehicles. Melanie crossed her arms. This is not just punishment. It is cleansing. We exposed a loophole, and they will close it. That is because of you. Jack shook his head. I did what anyone should have done. I just had the training to survive it. She looked at him. You did more than survive it. You rewrote the rules. He watched the final truck pull away. And for the first time, he allowed himself to believe it. The system that failed him had just devoured itself. Lindsay sat alone on a prison bench, dressed in gray, staring at a bulletin board of family photos that had nothing to do with her. Across from her, an officer spoke flatly. Your appeal was denied. You will serve out the full term. 3 years minimum before early release review. She nodded without reacting. Later that evening, she received a letter. No return address, but she knew the handwriting. Jack's. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No message, just a copy of the custody order. Stamped. Finalized. At the bottom, a line written in Jack's hand. You had everything, and you traded it for control. She crumpled the paper and stared at the wall. Noah would grow up. He would have questions. Maybe one day he would ask to see her. But she would not be ready for that conversation. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She was no longer anyone's wife. No longer a mother. Just a name on a news article that most of the world had already moved on from. And Jack? He had walked out of the fire with his soul intact, while she sat in the ashes, alone. The house was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the soft clicking of Noah's crayons on the dining table. Jack sat at his desk, staring at the blank page in front of him. The letter was not for the courts, not for the press, not for lawyers. It was for Noah. He began slowly, handwriting steady. You may read this when you are older. Maybe when you ask questions I cannot quite answer face to face. I want you to know something, and I want it to be written down. I never left you. Not once. The day I came home, and you were gone, it broke something in me. But it also built something. You were the reason I kept going. You were the reason I fought with everything I had. Not for revenge, but for truth. One day you will learn what people are capable of when they are afraid, selfish, or broken. But I hope you also learn what people can become when they choose to stand for something better. Jack paused. Then he added, I did not win because I was right. I won because I refused to lie. That is who I hope you become. Dad. He folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it away in the drawer. Not for today, but for the day his son would need it. Jack stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking pancakes while Noah colored at the table. The phone rang. Caller ID, Susan Marsh, National Morning News. He debated ignoring it. He answered instead. Mr. Whitmore, we are producing a documentary. Not just about your story, but the system around it. We would like to bring you on. Nothing dramatic. Just your voice. Jack stirred the batter in silence. You want the part where I almost lost everything? Or the part where I became a headline? We want the part where you showed that justice still works, if someone fights hard enough. He sighed. I have already said everything I needed to. A pause. Then just say it to the ones who have not lived it yet, she replied gently. There are more Jacks out there. He hung up without committing. Later that night, he thought about her words. The world knew what happened, but not everyone knew how to fight back. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to help them. Jack and Noah lay on a blanket in the backyard, stars blinking quietly above them. Noah pointed up. That one looks like a sword. Jack smiled. You see a sword, huh? I always thought it looked like an anchor. Can it be both? Noah asked. Jack nodded. Absolutely. Silence settled between them, peaceful and easy. Then Noah asked the question Jack had been dreading. Will I ever see her again? Jack looked over at his son. I do not know, he answered honestly. Maybe one day, when you are older, when you are ready. Noah rolled over, resting his head on Jack's chest. Okay, he whispered. As long as you are here. Jack wrapped his arm around his son and looked up at the stars again. The war was over. The courtroom battles, the strategy, the long nights. They were memories now. But this was the reason behind every move he had made. Tomorrow would be the first full day of peace. Not just outside, but inside, too. Jack never asked for the world's validation, but it came anyway. His face appeared on magazine covers, not with glamour, but with purpose. Headlines read, The Soldier Who Exposed a Custody Empire. One man versus the system, and the system fell. He turned down TV interviews, declined the Netflix offer. He was not interested in reenactments. But one day, he stood behind a podium at a national conference on family law reform, invited as a speaker, not as a symbol, but as a voice. He looked out over a sea of people, lawyers, parents, veterans, lawmakers. He did not speak with drama. He spoke with truth. I was not exceptional. I was just unwilling to accept the story I was given. He paused. I watched as my name, my character, and my family were rewritten by people who knew how to bend the system. But what they did not know is that the truth is patient. It waits. And when it arrives, it does not knock. It kicks the door down. Applause erupted. Outside, someone handed him a folder. Inside were draft proposals. New child custody protocols for active duty military personnel. A senator's aide whispered, We are calling it Noah's Law. Jack held the folder like it weighed 100 pounds. Because it did. It carried everything they had fought through, and everything they had built. 2 years later, Jack stood outside the new Noah Whitmore Advocacy Center, a nonprofit legal resource group offering free legal aid for parents caught in international custody disputes. He had not planned to start it, but the families kept writing to him. Fathers, mothers, veterans. I lost my daughter the same way. My ex filed a trauma claim just like that fake one. You gave me hope I had no idea I needed. So he did something about it. He partnered with Melanie. Kara joined as a media strategist. Malik handled cyber investigations. Noah's law passed with bipartisan support, enforcing stricter checks for trauma waivers, requiring independent reviews before international child movement, and giving deployed parents stronger legal protection. The organization's mission was simple: no more Jack Whitmores. No more Noahs disappearing in silence. No more trauma being used as a weapon. Jack never chased legacy. But now, legacy was chasing him. And for once, he did not run from it. Sunlight poured across the front yard as Noah ran through the grass, laughing with a dog Jack never planned to own but could not say no to. Jack stood on the porch, a cup of coffee in one hand, the other holding the framed custody order, now faded with time, but still powerful. He watched his son, not to protect him, just to enjoy him. Inside, that old letter sat in a drawer, still unread. Noah had not asked yet, but he would, one day. Until then, peace was no longer something Jack had to chase. It lived here now. As the day wound down, and the sky turned the color of calm, Jack sat beside Noah on the porch steps. "Do you think people change?" Noah asked. Jack looked up at the sky. "I think people reveal who they are, especially when they think no one is watching." Noah nodded, deep in thought. Then, "I'm glad you never stopped watching." Jack smiled. "So am I." They sat in silence. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the war was over, and peace had finally, truly arrived. Now let me ask you something. If someone tried to rewrite your life with lies, would you fight to take it back like Jack did? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your thoughts. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city below. If this story gripped you from start to finish, like the video to show your support. Subscribe for more epic revenge sagas and emotional thrillers. This was not the last. We will meet again in the next unforgettable story. Until then, take care of your truth and protect what matters most.